my entire Lorcana collection. Let's get into it. Alright, y'all, super excited to get into this video, but before we do, I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who gave me ideas for today's episode in the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, go join the Discord. We're having a ton of fun in there. People are giving us ideas for different episodes, and I promise you, anyone who has given an idea for an episode, I have written it down, I have jotted it down, and I'm going to make sure I do as many of these ideas as I can for future content. Thank you all so much for the support in there. Thank you all so much for the support on the channel, and with that, let's get into today's video. So I will primarily be doing the entire video today off my phone in the Collectr app. If you haven't downloaded the Collectr app, go do that. I'll leave some sort of a link in the description or some sort of like QR code or something where you can go download that, but definitely make sure you do that. It's a phenomenal place that you're gonna be able to go in, track your assets, and so many more things that I'll be able to talk about here a little bit with you. So first and foremost, we'll get into my showcase in a minute here, but we'll start out by kind of just showing my overall like value of my collection. Just a couple of call outs here as we're going through my overall value of my collection. First of all, I would say like what you're looking at here, this is just what I'm able to track within the actual app. There are a few things like different categories of things that like right now in the Collectr app you can't track. A perfect example of this would be like playmats. Like if you saw the playmat episode from like a week or so ago, check that video out if you haven't seen it. We had a ton of fun just showing off our playmats in the studio and everything, but like that would be a perfect example of something like the Collectr app doesn't let you do that yet. So things like mats and pins and like from like league championship and stuff like that, that kind of stuff you're not gonna be able to track in here. So you gotta find a different place to do that. Like I'll do it in like a spreadsheet or something like that, and then I'll kind of like combine assets and like combine resources like for an overall sort of like total of what I sort of am invested in with Lorcana. But the second big call out that I'll make here as you're looking like just at this chart right now, because right now, you know, we just have sort of the 1 month popped up. The second call out that I'll say is that this is a tool that's going to be helpful for you to track a lot of different things besides like just the overall like what you own in your collection. You're also going to be able to spot different trends, and I'm going to show you what I mean here in a second. So if you notice on this view right now, we're on a 1 month view of the chart, and at first glance you'll see that there aren't really many trends to pick up on, right? Like it's just an upward trajectory. First glance, everything looks normal, everything looks positive. Like I'm happy about it, right? In the last month, my collection's appreciated. So like that's a pretty good thing. But at the same time, then if we click on the 3 month, also kind of same thing. But then from there, if we click on the 6 month, then we start to notice that we see multiple different inflection points, or I would call them peak points. This is where we start to get a little bit more data. And so these are undoubtedly going to be times where like I added to my collection with like bulk, you know, like bulk offerings or like bulk investments. Like it could be a new set coming out, or it could be I just picked up a bunch of enchanteds. We do videos like that all the time on the channel where I'll go trade for enchanteds, pick up enchanteds, add them into the Collectr app, and from there, like you're gonna obviously have like big spikes. But what's very interesting in here is that you also see after each spike or each like peak point, you then start to see like a slow drop, right? And this, like for myself, I would just call out like this is something for me that doesn't necessarily matter, just because for myself and like what my collection goals are, I'm somebody who's like a long-term outlook kind of person. I'm a long-term trajectory. So even like the 1 month, 3 month, even the 6 month, like of course these are good like data points and these are good historical timeframes for me to track. But at the same time, it's not necessarily a big deal for me, at least with my collection goals, because I'm thinking like years out. So like as we get into the showcase here and I start to show you what I have in my collection, everything that you see in this collection, I don't really have any intention of selling these things within, you know, like within a year of owning them. I want to at least give the assets the opportunity to appreciate or depreciate and kind of see like where we're at and sort of pick up on trends that I want to pick up from there. But I will say, if you are someone who really scrutinizes on like looking at things from a standpoint of like, I want to make sure I buy at the right time, this 6 month chart is a perfect representation of understanding like really make sure you scrutinize and buy at the right time, because FOMO is absolutely real. As of today's recording, I think we're gonna have Azure at Sea coming out tomorrow, and I'm sure, you know, we're gonna probably be opening up a lot of that in the future, but I'm not saying don't go out and buy Azure at Sea right now. We're all super excited about it. Like I'm gonna buy it, you're gonna buy it, we're all gonna buy it. But at the same time, like if you're someone who really wants to make sure that you're getting the best of the price point, just understand that like again, charts like this they're very helpful for understanding like if you buy at that peak and you buy at that FOMO, you will see that gradual regression. So just kind of understand who you are as a collector and who you are as an investor. And again, the Collectr app is a great help for that. All right, so popping into my showcase here, or at least the bottom part of the showcase that I'm gonna kind of start from and work my way up. If I started at the bottom of the showcase, we would be here forever, right? Because there's like a million individual cards that I log in here and stuff like that. But I decided to start at least with like the cheapest enchanted that I own. I think it still might be the cheapest enchanted in general. I'm not sure. Either way, we'll start at Ariel's Grotto and we'll sort of work our way up here. And so the first call out that I'll make as we're sort of looking at these different items in here is that, and I've called this out on the channel before, is as you see here, and I'm scrolling up, obviously you see things like sealed items, and you see even items that I've purchased yet but have to go like pick up, like again, like the Azure at Sea Trove Box and stuff like that. But you also see things in here like different enchanteds that are like a ton of them that are hanging out in this like $40, $50, $60, $70 price point. And what I will call out about something like that is, and I'll try and find a good one here. Honestly, I mean, Sisu Divine Water Dragon is a perfect example of this. Like, that is a card that, as we've talked about and really scrutinized over on the channel, like that's a card that's like theoretically like a 1 in 96 pack type situation to pull an enchanted, and then from that 1 in 96 you have to pull the right enchanted, right? So like outside of going and purchasing the card itself as opposed to like pulling it, it's going to be really difficult to like actually pull this card. So the only way you're going to be able to complete like master sets and things like that is you're going to have to like go out and actually purchase the card on the secondary market. This could of course be eBay, Mercari, TCG Player, those secondary outlets, or you could obviously go into your LGS. If you have those relationships with individuals in your community, you have the ability to do that as well. But what I will say is right now, looking at the price points for some of these cards that are extremely difficult to pull, any enchanted that's hanging out underneath, like $80, again, not financial advice from me, but I'm just kind of calling it out. I think it's probably like a really good time to pick up some of these cards. And so I try to do that as often as I can, especially if it's a card like Disney Princesses. Like you see, we have Jasmine here, and then also you see you scrolling up, like we have multiple different cards here, like Hercules and Donald Duck and Beast, just so many cards that are hanging out underneath $100. The other call out that I'll make is as you're looking at these different assets that I own, many of them are going to be individual cards. The biggest call out that I would make when you look at my showcase, and you might be asking yourself like, I wonder how long he's going to hold on to these. Anything that I have any intention of selling within like a year, probably, I mean, obviously it can be hit or miss, right? It could be 10 months, it could be, 16 months, everything in between. But like anything that's hanging out sort of, like for more than a year is what I'll end up putting into the actual app. Something that I just am going to have, at least I know I'm going to have it as like a short-term hold for like, a few months, few weeks, something like that. I won't put that in the app because it gets really difficult to be able to track those things. So like for instance, from a sealed product perspective, like I'll put in my booster boxes, I'll put in my cases, and you're going to see some of those things as we scroll up through the showcase. But at the same time, like of course, like obviously in the last like month or so, like month and a half, with Shimmering Skies, working on pulling the enchanted out of the blisters, like I won't put those blisters into the actual Collectr app unless I have intention of like putting them away in like some sort of container or something like that, which I do for like first chapter, Floodborne, etc. Like I do have a container where I'm like, I'm not going to touch these. I want to be able to have these long term, things like that. But like those Shimmering Skies blisters, like when I go buy blisters so that we can open them on the channel, no way I'm logging those in the app, right? Because that's going to be way too much maintenance and operation on my side to be able to remember what I have. And that's like the one downside with, and it's not the Collectr app, it's just anything digital, right? It's like when it's not right in front of you, you're going to have to go digging for it because it's a digital Rolodex, right? So just really scrutinize when you put things in there, and when you take things out, really try to get in that habit. But I kind of stopped here on purpose because we're going to start to get into some of the like bigger items now. And as I say that and I scroll up, I would say just keep in mind anything that you see in here that's like, I would say that's like a quantity of like one of, like most likely it will never be leaving my collection because of course I wanted to be able to take the opportunity now, kind of in the infancy of the hobby, to sort of like say, okay, I'm going to get this now before it explodes, and again, explode can mean a lot of different things, right? Like right now, I mean, obviously you see like Bell right here that's hanging out at $250, and that's just a combination of price points between secondary markets like eBay and TCG and things like that. I'm not 100% sure what the Collectr app tracks, but I do know that they track eBay. So like that's probably like one of the data points that they, like a piece of analytics that they do track. But I mean, like popping or like exploding can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Like right now, people could think, man, Bell's exploding in price. The first chapter, enchanteds are exploding in price. I mean, honestly, if the hobby takes off, like 5+ years from now, this is going to look like peanuts compared to what's going to be coming down the line. So again, this is just where I really want to make sure I can get my hands on as many of these higher ticket items as I can, because then over time, when I'm filling out and like completing my sets and getting either cheaper enchanteds, or how about like that Clarabelle legendary cold foil that I can't seem to pull. And shout out all you who gave me very kind words and maybe flashed me a Clarabelle or two in the Discord. I love you all, appreciate you all. But things like that, right? Like those are things that I'm going to be able to sort of pick up on as time goes on. Like I'm going to be able to add those in. If it appreciates from like $25 to $45, like that's okay. When you start getting stuff that appreciates from like $300 to upwards of like whatever, 1,000 plus, think about those really high ticket cards. That's where, like, even though it is expensive right now, it might be a good idea to try and check those things off the list as quickly as you can, so that you do have the ability to complete them as you sort of go down and complete your master sets. But again, obviously, as we scroll up, you start to see things that really become very special in terms of like the hobby, and things that, again, like, I mean, I pretty much grab these to make sure that they'll never leave the collection. Again, I mean, these are we're starting to get into items here as we kind of get to the top, as you start to see like the first chapter cases and the 2 Elsas that I have. Like, again, so you have the raw one and you also have the PSA one. A really cool thing about the Collectr app, and actually like the Elsa is a perfect example of this. With the Elsa, like they can track like the raw versions, and then they can also track the PSA variants as well. So like if you wanted to put in like a PSA 10, like it's going to be able to track that based off of the lowest like listings out there for eBay and things like that. So again, it's not just like, well, I have 2 Elsas, but one's raw and one's a 10, and it kind of tracks them as the same thing. It's very cool that like they can like they've just started to roll that out, where it's kind of like, obviously those 2 investments are not the same thing. My raw copy, I've been like very outspoken about, where it's like, that is my most valuable possession. It's the first enchanted I ever pulled it with my wife, pulled it in 2 packs. Like, it was amazing, right? Like, it's like the coolest thing I have, like in any hobby, anything collector wise. Like, that is the coolest like collector piece that I own, just because of the story and the memory. However, there's no way it would grade in 10, because there is like a chip on it. So it's kind of like, that shouldn't quantify as being like equal with the PSA 10. So the Collectr app can dissect that, and it can divvy those things up, which is really cool. But yeah, I figured this would be a cool way to show you my collection, at least from a digital standpoint. At the same time, like, I know we'll probably go through looking through things like, maybe I'll show you how I sort my stuff. I get questions all the time about like, how do you sort your bulk? How do you sort your packs, your blisters, your cases, your enchantments? Like, how do you do all that? Like, do you showcase your enchant? Like, all these different questions. And obviously, like, we'll try and do a bunch of different content on all those things. But I thought that this would be like a cool first step to at least giving you like a little bit of a window into like where my collection is at now, and we can kind of see it grow as the channel grows and as our community grows. So I thought that would be kind of cool. Thank you all so much for giving me the great idea for the Thursday video today, and looking forward to more like this. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for today's episode. If you enjoyed today's content, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Go get in the Discord. Go have fun with us in there. Keep the conversation going in there. Cannot wait for upcoming content revolving Azure at Sea and all sorts of other fun things like this idea that we had here today. But until that time, we are eternally grateful for you all, and we'll see you all on the other side. Peace out.